Hello, everybody. But the question arises, does someone who goes on to higher education and gets a master's degree or even a doctorate degree, do they have more knowledge than someone who does not pursue formal education to learn that topic? In many situations, I would say they don't. Probably the most effective way in the world to learn something is to actually do it. And we've talked about the purpose of college or school before being to expose someone to something. Now, if you are able to gain exposure on your own without any form of higher education, that's great. That's not always possible, and that's why a college or baccalaureate degree is so beneficial. It gives you the signaling function that you need to acquire job opportunities, that is, to be introduced into a field, to get your foot in the door, if you will. But the same isn't always true for master's degrees. Lots of times those are used for promotion, that is, to move yourself up in an organization or somehow to set yourself apart. And we've discussed before that pursuing the higher education without experience to accompany it oftentimes does not have the intended purpose. Now, there are always exceptions like professional degrees where you need higher education after college in order to practice in that field. That could be to be a certified public accountant, it could be to be a doctor, a lawyer, or some other field that absolutely requires that level of education before you're even qualified to do a specific job or task. But for most fields in business, really, there is no educational requirement. Now, to get a job, an employer is going to want a degree, and oftentimes they would like for you to have a degree in a field where you have some level of exposure to the topic or subject matter that you're going to be working in. For example, if you want to be an accountant, it's good to study accounting because there's a lot of knowledge there that you will have to acquire. And outside of getting introduced to accounting in college, it's very difficult to learn that on your own. And you certainly wouldn't be qualified to be a certified public accountant because you need the educational hours. But with that being said, in general fields of business, such as entrepreneurship, management, marketing, for example, if you don't have formal education, but you pursue to learn it on your own, or you get an undergraduate degree and you have a decent exposure to it so you get the job or opportunity, after that, does pursuing a master's degree make you more knowledgeable or proficient in that field versus working in the field? Well, my general observation is that someone working in the field tends to have more expertise and knowledge of how things are done. And oftentimes that adds a lot of context to why things are done as well. So individuals with a great deal of practice in an area tend to be extremely knowledgeable about that specific area in which they work. On the other side, individuals who pursue higher education but have less experience, I see tend to have a broader understanding of the theory behind the topics, but they have far less understanding of how something actually works. And that can prove very difficult for them if they're trying to use the higher education or higher degree to land a job at a certain level in a given field where they're competing with others who have experience but not the degree. And this is the general explanation behind why I believe it's a bad idea to stack degrees without getting commensurate experience. But in this video, we're really talking about a question of degree or extent. That is, how much more knowledgeable is someone who has practice in a given area and a basic degree in that area to get them started? So a college graduate goes into marketing and then they practice in marketing for 4 or 5 years. Well, my argument is that they probably have a great deal more technical knowledge and understanding of how the field or practice of marketing, in whatever field within marketing you work in, how that works. So if you do advertising, you have a far greater understanding than somebody who simply studied advertising. If you worked in human resources, you have a far greater understanding of human resources than someone who just pursued a master's of human resources afterwards. Now, the one advantage I would say for the individual who primarily pursues the educational route above the experience route is that they do get to see things on a broader context. They get exposed to more ideas behind why something happens. And if you keep on going to even higher education, you become a researcher, you get a PhD in something, then it can oftentimes be a hindrance for the researchers because it makes it so difficult for them to really effectively research a field if they don't fully understand or see the nuances of daily practice. But at the same time, an individual who works in a given field and undertakes the daily tasks that they are taught in that field oftentimes misses the bigger picture and they have a difficult time innovating or coming up with novel ways of doing things or asking the bit broader question of why are we doing this? Is there a better way to do this? Should we be doing something else entirely? It's people who can think objectively. And these individuals oftentimes leave the practice and start their own business or start a startup venture that changes things dramatically. Where an individual who has higher education alone has a very difficult time doing this because, once again, they aren't solving the problem that they've identified through practice. They're simply applying the concepts that they've learned to an objective problem. So, when it comes to experience versus education in specific fields where you're going to practice that thing, a professional career path, not just for being a well rounded individual, but for understanding the topic or subject matter that you're doing, I would have to say that there's a lot more benefit to experience than education. So, once again, this is just my opinion. And of course, these videos are just to make you think about things and hopefully garner some discussion. So, if you have an opinion, please jump down in the forums, go over to thebusinessprofessor.com, start a discussion. But regardless, I hope to see you around the platform sometime soon. And until then, take care.